We're very excited to have with us today JD Gershbein, also known as the LinkedIn Style Guide. Today's format is a fireside chat. So, how it's going to work is I'm going to speak a little bit with JD and ask him a few questions, and then we're going to open the floor for questions, and whoever wants to come and up to the stage can do so. So, first, let me start by telling you a little bit about JD. Since 2006, he's been at the forefront of LinkedIn conversation. He's one of the world's first independent LinkedIn consultants and a pioneer in LinkedIn education. He serves ambitious professionals striving to make their mark in the digital age. As a speaker, facilitator, writer, and media producer, he draws upon his diverse academic background, which is a fusion of psychology, neuroscience, and the humanities, and the improvisation skills he honed at Chicago's famed Second City to bridge the knowledge gap that exists between business people and the online world. He's widely regarded as a leader in personal branding, social networking, and social entrepreneurship. JD's blazing a trail as one of the most original personalities in the leadership development arena. So I'm going to bring JD up to the stage. Greetings all, and I'm going to ask him a few questions, and then we'll take some questions from you guys. So JD, you're considered one of the world's top LinkedIn strategists. And
I heard that somewhere.
Yeah, and a pioneer in LinkedIn education. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal and professional journey and what influences have influenced you along the way?
Yeah, and as I'm listening to that bio, I'm kind of thinking to myself almost in metacognition, how did I arrive at that point? And I never used to speak of LinkedIn in terms of being a journey, but it truly is. And that's how I've kind of taken upon this responsibility of being a LinkedIn style guide and kind of passing the mantle to others who want to go down the journey as well. So my personal and professional journey are very intertwined. I've always wanted to do good in the world since I was a kid. I had good rearing. I had role model parents. Both my parents were artists and scientists, and I'm a bit of an artist and a scientist. So I've always questioned the world around me, and I've always found creative pathways to design a solution to a problem. So I think that's what really brought me here. At the time I saw LinkedIn, Lori, I was kind of meandering around in business. I didn't really have an identity, a professional identity. I didn't know who I was. I knew I wanted to serve people. I was in marketing at the time. And when I first laid eyes on LinkedIn in 2006, it was transformational on impact. I loved what I saw. We were kind of at the headwaters of the social media revolution. So all of this was new, and there was no me to show me around. I had to learn this all on my own, and through rigorous study and lots of hours and talking about it and listening to people and really keeping an eye on trends and patterns, I guess I found my identity here in the online world as someone who could advise others on how to make this platform their own. And really, that's all I've done is speak and write about the transformational power of LinkedIn because I am witness to it.
Fantastic. Your approach is pretty unique. It's a hybrid of neuroscience, psychology, and improvisation. Can you tell us a little bit more about how your background in science and the arts equips you for your work with individuals and companies?
Early into my LinkedIn journey, the personal branding conversation was taking hold, and I was a part of it. And uh, I dove deep into the neuroscience and psychology of personal branding. Now, I'm trained in those areas, so I grew up in the shadow of a medical man who was steeped in neuroscience and biochemistry and physiology. So I've always understood the connection between body and mind and how we kind of operate to architect our positive futures through keeping ourselves fit, both physically and mentally. So as I've gone through my thinking on LinkedIn, I figured I would bring in the neuroscience. I would talk about the areas of the brain that were stimulated as we kind of maneuver about the online world. I would talk about the thought process and cognitive science behind our decision making online. And all of this is kind of pooled into a very nice value proposition that I bring that nobody else is talking about. And that's really the essence of personal branding, and how I've differentiated my own platform is by going deep into the science, by going deep into the art and the aesthetics of how we look online, how we express ourselves online, which dovetailed into my cracking or birthing that a notion of having a LinkedIn style. That I really believe that's what sets us apart. Is there are strategies on LinkedIn, there are techniques and tricks and hacks that people are talking about, but it still comes down to how you communicate, expressing yourself in a way that means something to those you want to serve, and going from there and just talking to people and figuring out ways to reach them, to resonate with them.
Cool. Let's talk about your moniker. These days, you've been known as the LinkedIn Style Guide.
Yeah.
So, what's the LinkedIn style, and how does it differ from personal branding?
I'm actually researching that quite extensively right now, Lori and friends. I do see parallels and differences between what we call a LinkedIn brand and a LinkedIn style. So brand is a uniquely neuronal concept. It's how we are affixed into the minds of others, the place for us in their mind, what I've kind of dubbed the psychic hierarchy. Where do we stack up? How do we get people to remember us? And how do we lay down our memories? And I think that's where style plays prominently. We get to people through our individual style, the way we look on the platform, the way we communicate, the way we express ourselves, the way we reveal and proclaim ourselves to the business world is our style. And from there, we ideally take root in the memory centers of the brain. And people see us on a regular basis, which is obviously the business case for creating content on social networking sites, but especially on LinkedIn, where it's around the business conversation. We have to install ourselves as the logical choice to provide a service, sell a product, market our skills to a potential employer, and create a collaborative energy around us so that people will want to work with us, develop a strategic partnership with us. So it's all done through style. And everything about style that I bring to LinkedIn is borrowed from my experience in the menswear industry. I'm kind of an insider, and I've kind of been very sartorial my whole life. If you saw me speak at a conference, I was a suit and tie guy. I always respected my audience by dressing well. And I believe that creating a sense of enclothed cognition in the real world, in other words, wearing nice apparel so that we feel better about ourselves, has translated into the online realm, because the better you look on this document called a LinkedIn profile, the better you feel about yourself, and the better the impact, the more positive the impact you'll make on others.
True. So LinkedIn, as we know, is changing a lot. And I believe that you've called it, I'm going to borrow a phrase from you, the new frontier.
Please.
So let's take a look at the platform's evolution. What do you think are the most significant changes to date?
Wow, it has been on a path of relentless change, and it was slow to change at first, because back in 2006, when I discovered the platform, it was a very crude rendition of what it is today. It looked like somebody's undergraduate IT project. It was, by today's standards, it did not have the visual appeal that it does. There was so much that had to be added to it. So systematically and methodologically, LinkedIn rolled out these changes to its user base. And as the user base just expanded exponentially, more features came into play. So we can talk about a continuous evolution and adaptation on the part of LinkedIn to really suit the needs of its membership. But where we're at today is the result of probably the most significant change, which parallels human history, and that is the onset of the global pandemic in March of 2020. And I see that as the single greatest catalyst in the history of LinkedIn, because it really thrust so many people onto the platform. People who had postponed or neglected LinkedIn were suddenly leaning into the site and figuring out that they should have been on it all along. And they started to tinker with their profiles, and they started to communicate with others, because we were forced to do so. We couldn't meet with anyone. And LinkedIn's greatest value to humanity is how it drove home the promise of human connection in business by just being in front of the site and letting your eyes go into soft focus and seeing who was in your professional network or your community and who you needed to speak with. And many people operated out of a place of survival and desperation. They didn't know what to do. And they figured that the first thing was to go on LinkedIn and maintain a sense of connectedness with prospects, clients, employers, their teams. That was the single greatest modification that companies had to make, was how can we use LinkedIn to unify our folks, keep them on the same page and engaged on a daily basis while they were sheltering at home. So I look at the greatest changes, I'll say plural, changes on LinkedIn as a result of the global health crisis that really shone a light on our frailties, our vulnerabilities, and our absolute necessity to rely on ourselves to propel our careers.
Cool. I was wondering if we could segue a little bit over to talking about um, what you espouse in your writing. In much of your writing and speaking, you speak about content and community being intertwined.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure, I know we've got a few people in the community building arena here today, and the principles of sound community management have always applied. I believe we've been building these communities all along. We just have been calling them networks. And one of the great strategic shifts that I think we can make, I made this a while ago, was to remove ourselves from the mental construct of a network, which is a very schematic, very static mental mindset, mental image of people that we know in our businesses and careers and our lives, to a community. And that's the big shift out of all the shifts that we can make, is not looking at these people as just names and thumbnails on a device screen, but really understand that they're flesh, blood, and bone on the other side. People who have feelings and emotions and intellect and capabilities and dreams and goals as big as ours. And our mission, should we decide to accept it, is to find the people we most want to run with, who understand us, who are like-minded, without the assumption of being like-minded, but truly negotiating that and finding people that you want to move forward with in business, because it makes it so much more fun when you don't get some of these negative behaviors and reflections coming back at you. You're with people in the milieu of doing business or advancing a career or selling product or becoming a trusted advisor. Whatever the initiative is, LinkedIn has the machinery in place to serve that. But it's an engine that must be started regularly, maintained regularly, and when it is, it's a beautiful thing.
Cool. Thank you. So let's talk a minute about community professionals. How can they use LinkedIn in to their advantage?
Well, obviously, they have to start making that shift from network to community. And when you talk about a community, it's, and terms like communal and communication, all having that same word root, you're really looking at bringing people together who have shared interests. I think we know that. But LinkedIn can be that connective tissue that holds people together. And there's a couple ways to do it. I've isolated and identified 3 areas that can support the MO of community builders. And the first is obviously selecting invitations from people that have some kind of connectable basis to you. They're not, we're not hoarding connections. It's not he who dies with the most connections wins. It's really about being selective in your ability to move someone who's inviting you to connect into a trusted confidant or member of a community. Second are communal groups like LinkedIn groups and the LinkedIn company page. Those can both have an adjunct way of communicating with folks. And if you have a LinkedIn group associated with a membership organization or a networking group, those are great ways to put in a secondary communication platform to move people through the LinkedIn platform to get there. And then you have LinkedIn company pages. These are for membership organizations. We're seeing more and more of them become paid organizations, a kind of a pay-to-play networking type of arrangement where a LinkedIn company page is important for having the voice of the collective out there on LinkedIn. So you've got groups and company pages. And then the third piece is through the direct messaging platform or the message center. You can isolate people to support each other through content advocacy. So folks, one of the things that I'm writing extensively about these days is the interplay between content and community. Content builds community, and through community, you can elevate your profile through content. The two are interlaced very tightly together, so that if people are out there creating, producing, and distributing content on a regular basis, they can recruit advocates through LinkedIn to help them get the word out about themselves, and in a reciprocal fashion, also engage on their content. So we kind of see this overlap now across multiple communities starting to happen too, where community A and community B have some mutual members or some mutual interests. They're overlapping. You have more and more people putting content out there into the ether on a regular basis. It's going to find its way into the eyes, ears, and minds of people. So that's kind of a multi-pronged approach to bridging the gap between content and community.
Cool. Could you kind of touched on this a little bit. What are the benefits of a paid LinkedIn program versus a free version?
It's still the most frequently asked question I get wherever I go, wherever I speak. And back in the day, I could go through the bullet points of why the paid program is valuable. And more people were skating on the free program back then. But I believe now that what's happened is with the skyrocketing in LinkedIn use, more and more people who are on the free program have put greater reliance and dependence on LinkedIn, and they're now seeing that LinkedIn is withholding certain valuable information from them because they're free users. So when they upgrade, they can start to see the information that is being withheld from them, and they're also privy to more of LinkedIn's features that enable community building, that enable business and career development, and give you more features through the creator mode as well, and give you the ability to really build a presence on the site. So I tell people that they'll know it when they feel it, and if they keep getting rerouted to the upgrade now page and it upsets them, then the time is right to upgrade.
Cool. I'm seeing a lot, and I bet you everybody else here has seen it too. A lot of spammy sales messages. And folks are kind of saying, LinkedIn's a pitch fest. What do you think's going on here, and why are people constantly selling?
Boy, if I had a nickel for every time I've been asked that, I would have a lot of nickels. But again, a byproduct of the pandemic, because when so many people were pressed into service because of this, they could not contact people the way that they were traditionally contacting them. LinkedIn kind of became that place where the shock was absorbed. And what did salespeople do? They had to sell. They had to move product off the shelves. They had to pitch. But let's back up just a little bit. Prior to the pandemic, we started to see more and more people self-promote. The LinkedIn groups became a cesspool of self-promotion. Back around 2015, they kind of dried up a little bit. And more people were not having discussions per se on the groups. They were just posting external links to their websites or blogs or landing pages. And nobody wanted to go on the groups anymore. So I started to see that as a hint of things to come, a harbinger, if you will. And then I would say, beginning with the pandemic, March of 2020, we started to see this uptick in predatory sales behaviors and the proliferation of spammy digital marketing programs. And I think I speak for any number of people who say that it's annoying to get these messages. I'm not immune to it. I probably get them in even greater amounts because of the way my profile is keyworded and the industry that I'm in. So nobody's immune to it. It's just you put something in the hands of a huge population, and there are going to be bad actors in there who will find a way to exploit it. And that's what's happening. More and more people are figuring that LinkedIn is a license to sell, and they're just sending out these spammy machine generated messages by the tens of thousands, sometimes even by the hundreds of thousands. And they are offensive, they are intrusive, and they went from being a small annoyance to a colossal annoyance. I don't advocate any of them. I favor organic LinkedIn growth, and I'm a relationship builder, and that's the key. Is nobody's buying anything sight unseen these days. What gives these people the idea that someone is going to buy off of a templated email or two staggered in sequence? It's mind-numbingly ridiculous at this point what's going on. And I tell folks, you want to stand out on LinkedIn, don't sell anything, because you'll sell more products and services on LinkedIn if you don't sell products and services on LinkedIn.
There you go. And I have one more question, and then I think it's time to open the floor to questions. What are your 3 best suggestions for that could immediately impact folks' ability to leverage LinkedIn to its fullest?
Well, we're on LinkedIn to really build 3 things. And I guess my best advice is around these 3 areas. We're on LinkedIn first to build a brand. What does that mean? Well, we'll discuss, but building a personal brand means really working the system to find some way to stand out, to rise above the noise, to cut through the clutter, and all of those cliches that we've grown so tired of hearing. But it really does mean differentiating yourself. And that is not easy work. That is every day, eyes on screen, mind on screen, and really doing what it takes. Not just saying that you want to stand out, but really intentionally and purposefully acting on the site and being proactive. So my first, I guess, tip, I'm not really a tip guy, Lori, but for you, I'll give tips, is to tend to the profile. Tending to the profile, building that sound brand infrastructure that will support you in any number of ways, because the LinkedIn profile has become your first point of reference in the business universe. And if it's not tight, if it's not clear, and if there's any ambiguity, it's going to militate against you. So have the best impression available, the best version of yourself translated to that profile page. It is not a resume. It is a living, breathing document. Flesh out the right narrative that installs you as the authority figure, or the impact player, or the trusted advisor, or the solutionist, or the innovator, etc. The second piece is to, again, make that mindset from network to community and truly understand where people are coming from when they invite you to connect and when you invite them to connect, and appreciate the sanctity of that first degree connection. Again, it is not a license to sell, but it is a green light to go forward and see what's on the other side. It is a chance for you to seed a promising conversation, to learn about someone's business, to learn if you are in fact a good fit, or if you're in alignment. And that's what it comes down to for me, and it should for everyone. You have to be aligned with folks, and there has to be a good fit if you're going to work together. And the third is to start building a compelling business case for yourself and your business through content. And again, we talked about content and community being intertwined. Content is driving everything right now on LinkedIn, and there are content wars raging as we speak. Everybody has a viewpoint, it seems, even though only 1% to 3% of LinkedIn Nation is posting content regularly. But people's eyes are on the site, whether they're posting or not. They are looking, and you can prepare a portfolio of content that can bolster you in the eyes of the decision makers you're trying to reach. And again, part of that whole LinkedIn profile approach, that organic approach, that you are building something, that LinkedIn is fertile soil. It's not a place to just go spew a sales pitch. It really is that haven for building trust, developing relationships, and moving forward with the right people. If they're not the right people, they're not the right people. Okay, so you can stay connected, your professional friends, but the folks that are eventually going to hire, retain, or collaborate with you, or become part of your community and be a good citizen within your community, those people you should vet more carefully and just become a more conscientious, intentional LinkedIn user.
Great. Okay, I think it's time to open the floor. Folks, we can do this a couple different ways. I'm happy to put everybody on speaker so you can actually, and on camera if you are comfortable with that.
Come on in, folks. The water's fine.
Or we do like sharing the stage here a lot. Or you can simply type your question in the chat and I'd be happy to read it for you. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to enable everyone's microphones, and you can pipe up, and you can either choose to go on, have your video on or not. How's that sound? Sound okay?
Oh, we should definitely make them turn the video on.
Yeah.
We should definitely make them turn the video on. It's a confidence piece, folks. It's important to elevate and hear the sound of your own voice.
I agree. Everybody's being enabled as a presenter.
Let's enable. Let's see. You can't facilitate a conversation without people having a conversation.
Okay. If you are.
Hi, Aiden.
Okay. Who wants to speak to JD?
Here I am. Hi, Heather.
He's wonderful. I've known him for a long time. We met. I think we met. Gosh, was it May? No, like March, April, May. We met. We have a mutual friend, Pablo Gonzalez, who had a wonderful show called Be the Stage. And he's recently moved into category thinking, which is pretty cool too. And we just started talking and found we had a lot in common. And I thought his value proposition was incredible. And I thought, gee, here we are in this really bizarre time in our economy and particularly in our profession. And I thought I proposed this to him, like, hey, would you be open to talking to community professionals about how they can build their personal brand and really get traction on LinkedIn? So if anybody would like to ask JD a question, please do. You can keep your camera on and off. Same thing with your mic, but please come forth, because I like to share the stage and I don't want to be the chief person asking questions.
It's always that waiting for the first one. But once that first one comes, it's like a domino effect and more questions come.
I hope so.
And I can ask the question. So let me do this, because I think it'll get us into some nice areas. And so we have Aiden and Heather on stage. So let me pose this question to you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I would imagine that we have community builders here. Tell me how, up until today, you've been using LinkedIn, and what new thinking has kind of come around in the last 30 minutes.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Aiden.
Hi, how are y'all?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I've been on LinkedIn for several years, but part of why I'm here today is because I'm the social media strategist for a company that produces HR software. And since I have taken over our LinkedIn account, we have been trying to build a bigger community of HR professionals, because we also produce a lot of HR content and run a conference. We also have a community page on our own website that we're trying to drive more traffic to. So it's kind of like a little bit different from me developing my own community, but I'm very interested to hear more about what organizations and company pages are like. So one thing that was kind of new to me was the idea of being a little bit more selective, because as a company page, I feel like a lot of it is just trying to get as many interactions, followers as possible. But being more intentional, I suppose, with the audience that you curate on LinkedIn is a lot easier than, say, other platforms like Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, where it really is more of a numbers game. Here, it's like you have more people that are actually speaking and interacting with what you're posting.
And LinkedIn has truly emerged as that platform. All of the social media platforms share similar characteristics. In other words, the account holder has a central core of information that they can populate with content, a profile page. But on LinkedIn, it happens to be the most robust of all. And because of its interactive space and because it's tied around the business conversation, Aiden, it really has emerged as that platform. It is king of the heap in social media. It has not endured some of the problems that the other sites have. Save for a few minor security breaches, LinkedIn has been squeaky clean. That doesn't mean it doesn't have its problems, its glitches, its flaws. There are trends and patterns that are disturbing on it to me as a social scientist, but to break through with unadulterated business conversation and be able to engage the people that you are out to serve is a phenomenal invention. It really is. It puts us right there in front of the people that can help us, support us, serve us, mentor us, buy from us, provide resources for us, that kind of thing. So that's the marketplace. That's how it's driving commerce these days. From a company perspective, a company page on LinkedIn supports the individual profiles and vice versa. LinkedIn is a personal selling platform. It's really the place where we sell ourselves, but at the same time, we have businesses, we have organizations, we have teams, we have a culture to showcase. So as your social media lead for your company, LinkedIn can be instrumental in helping you showcase the people, the products, and the dynamic that you offer with your company. The community outreach can be strong through the company page. And when the company puts out content into the mainstream, then it's shared by the individuals and you get more spread across the LinkedIn ecosystem. And that's kind of how individual profiles play with the company pages. But company presence, very important. Obviously, companies are looking for top talent as well. So it's not just about talking or discussing the coolness of the products or services, but broadcasting the opportunities to become a part of the team. And recruiting is a huge piece of LinkedIn. Not my sweet spot, but the company page figures prominently because there are people that your organization doesn't know about that is trying to find an into your culture. And ideally, the more you can crack open the window to that world and make your folks accessible, bolstering the profiles of leadership, making sure everything is nice and intact, that brand infrastructure, it's going to go a long way to helping you win the war for top talent.
We have a question from Christopher. Aiden, did you want to respond? I'm sorry.
No, that was great. I was taking notes. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a question from Christopher Ragland. He wanted to talk about his LinkedIn profile. He says, under each job that we have on our LinkedIn profile, what's the best way to position our duties and responsibilities? Should we be using some kind of data to showcase what we've done?
Well, there are many ways, Christopher, to showcase experience on the profile. Obviously, I'm a believer in storytelling. Storytelling is kind of the new marketing, and it probably differentiates with the greatest reinforcement the value of the LinkedIn profile versus the resume. So in the about section of the profile, that's where you really flesh out the best pieces of your narrative. The experience section in your current role should continue that narrative. But the convention on LinkedIn has become, and I'm not sure that I'm 100% behind it, is to basically import the bullet points from a resume to any closed position. So if it accurately reflects what you did, and keyword there is what you did, then it's okay to have a closed position kind of be a verbatim pull from the resume. But that present role or any multiple present roles that you may have, these should be continuing the about section and offer the product and service categories. But if there are results that you've driven or are driving, or if you're realizing a certain year over year gain. That's fine to showcase in a profile. I guess it depends. Typically what folks do on a resume when they're looking for their next success is they will put those results. They will put a percentage of, say, revenue growth, or a percentage of account growth through a certain 1, 2, or 3 year period. So it's fine to bring that in, but obviously your top achievements, top accomplishments should be stated in each of your experience sections.
Christopher asked, are bullet points okay?
Yeah. In a closed position, yes. In an open role, typically it depends, because I'm working mostly with entrepreneurs and business professionals, solopreneurs, or people who have existing roles at companies. And the bullet point to me is more of a past tense notation. A present tense would be more along the lines of the storytelling, that you are doing this, or you will be doing this, as opposed to you did do this from the other sections. Bullet points are cool. Nothing against the bullet point.
I think Yuri's looking like he's going to ask a question.
I have so many questions. I can always ask them, like you don't have to ask me twice. And yeah, as I have my new mic, I have to test it.
That is a solid microphone, man. The quality of that mic, you're ready for FM radio, I'll tell you.
Just like that. And so the question is, I notice that the more you interact with people and the more you DM them on LinkedIn, the more you see them on your feed and the more they see you on their feed. So what are more maybe tips, tactics on how to make your posts and everything you share on LinkedIn more visible to others?
Great realization, and that is exactly what's happening. When you use the direct message center, LinkedIn recognizes algorithmically these patterns and who you're approaching and who's approaching you, and if almost by magic, they're shuffling any content that they've produced within the last 24 hours in front of you as well. Perhaps you've noticed that. So the key is, if you're connecting with people of a certain, say, industry or market sector, or vertical, try to have a piece of content going out at the same time that you connect with them and begin a messaging thread, because ideally LinkedIn will shunt that to the top of their thread and they will see that. And that's timeliness of content, which is it's a powerful strategy, and it certainly will get you to top of mind very quickly, because you've just connected or you've just messaged each other, and ideally there's name recognition there. And certainly if you're reaching out to someone, what LinkedIn is telling you, or telling both parties, is that there's communication now between the two parties, and they will work to get any content in front of both parties. So that you've picked up on that is a very acute realization and very strategic. And what can you do? Again, it means tailoring and customizing your content toward these people that you've connected with and that you're communicating with.
But you still can't communicate with hundreds of people on daily basis. So how to continue this moment going on?
I've discovered that's my superpower, is keeping thousands of conversations in play simultaneously. And that's where the work comes in. And there's no sugarcoating it. It is not a mass messaging platform. LinkedIn is driving you to more interpersonal communication, one-on-one, mind-to-mind, peer-to-peer. That's how it's done. And it requires the honing of a skill set, the ability to be proactive enough to look at the messaging center, see who you've got conversations in play with, and keep them going. It's like keeping plates spinning, right? You keep the plate spinning, you keep applying the force, the plate will spin. But if you turn away and forget about that plate, what's it going to do? It's going to wobble, and then it's going to... Same thing like with LinkedIn conversations. How's that for a metaphor?
LinkedIn is just like life, if you're talking to people, you are connecting with them. If you're stopping talking to them, most likely they will forget about you. Or if you're living in an async world, maybe a year later you can continue conversation from the moment you stopped. But yeah, it's a fun thing. And also, I used some automation back then, but I didn't use it for bad things. You know, I wasn't selling anything. I was just inviting people to communities, but it still looked very much like selling. And I have so many people who I really don't know, and I'm still cleaning my LinkedIn contacts, like, I don't know, 5-10 people daily. And do you know if let's say, I don't know how to say it correctly. Okay, so just a little more context. So currently I'm connecting only with community builders because I'm talking to community builders and I'm connecting with people in this sphere. And I'm trying to delete connections, like, I don't know, with salespeople or with SEO experts who I do not talk with anymore. And do you know if it somehow helps me to get my community building content to community builders?
Well, you're being very judicious. That was the second of the 3 suggestions I had in terms of purifying the network. And I think it's important to operate from a place of cohesion and tight-knit connections. I think you're doing the right things, truly. There are people that we connect with. In the early days, I did the same thing. I connected with a whole lot of people that would never hire me. There was no economic value. So here's another concept. It's okay to think of people as having economic value to you. Remember, LinkedIn is not Facebook. It is a social networking site dedicated to the pursuit of commerce. So these people to connect with are people who may be your economic buyers or folks who can get you to the economic buyers, because you don't want to discount that SEO or franchise guy if they may be connected to people who you can serve. So we have to be more selective, more careful is how we vet people who are going to enter our networks. And they can just as easily work their way off our networks. If you connect with someone and they're right back at you with a sales pitch, it's their history. I don't tolerate that. And I think for you as a community builder, it's a built-in leadership by example type of position. You have to show people on an individual basis how you build community, and it's literally cliche, at the risk of sounding cliche, one person at a time. So if you're congenial, if you're intentional about building a relationship, people will notice because they're getting spammed every day. If you're the message that's not selling them something, you increase your likelihood of a return message, and then you can keep the plate spinning. You can ask them if they're willing to meet you on Zoom for 20 to 30 minutes, talk about potential synergies, as I do. That's really my strategic play on any of this, is to get folks on a Zoom and see where it goes from there, because there's not much, you can't really talk to them through a profile page. So yeah, and the fact that you're also weeding out people is important, because I do little micro audits of my community as well. There are people that just have lost relevance, or I look at the message history, and if they haven't returned any of my emails, what's the point of being connected?
Totally, and I'm not that strategic yet. Maybe a little later.
Well, you are now.
Currently, I'm just building human connections, and just I will try to hit 3 of 3. So what I noticed, like the best post ever, if somebody like changing the job or sharing some milestone or talking about their birthday or celebrating something or are being sad about something. But if you are going into some like deeper thoughts, deeper details, there is not much traction. So it's not like there are just a few, comments, a few, let's say, reactions. But what I noticed, there are the best connections ever. So those people who connects with you on these deep topics, you can really, go with them anywhere. But still, like, how to keep balance of like, celebrating the world and talking about deeper stuff?
Yeah, well, the deeper stuff is the deeper stuff, and LinkedIn has certainly held up a mirror to the human condition, and more people are being forthcoming with the things that bother them, the things that ail them, the things that are confronting them, worry them, and they're also coming from leadership people. And I'm not really sure we want our leaders to be all that fragile in our presence. I mean, there are some things that go on in the back room, you know, to people in confidence, but it's a social networking site and it's out there. And whether people like it or comment on it or repost it, they're seeing it. And that's why you have to be very careful about what you put out on social media. And I think history has taught us that many, many, many times already, is that what you put out there is a direct extension of yourself. So that's the risk you have to mitigate. So in the direct messaging, that's where I think a lot of LinkedIn comes alive. There's only so much you can do in the presence of the community, but it's how you bring your individual style, your unique expression into your messages that's going to move the needle, and how you merge what you're doing on LinkedIn with your own personal system of closing business or building relationships. And that's where LinkedIn serves professionals. It's not like it's going to help you get business. That's kind of the wrong term, but it's going to set you up for the types of conversations that lead to business or career growth. And if you can start to look at LinkedIn in those terms as just the pivot point, the linchpin that puts you in touch with opportunities, you're going to have a much easier time, and it's going to be much more fun, and you won't pressure yourself. A lot of my clients and students are just, they're under pressure. They've heard so many perspectives from this thought leader or that expert or that guru, and there's a lot of bad advice on LinkedIn. So I'm here to clear the deck and tell you that you're on the right track. You have to find the right people to talk to who are willing to listen to what you have to say. And maybe, just maybe, if all goes well, they'll buy.
They'll buy human
They'll
relationship.
buy. Well, they're buying the relationship before they buy you. If you're looking to monetize something, whether it's your services as a consultant advisor, whether it's if you're selling a membership organization, whether you're selling a hard product off the shelf, a software program, a franchise opportunity, SEO services, whatever the case may be, these are services that are wide scale that a lot of people are looking at. A lot of people are looking to change their life. A lot of people are, back in the day when I was in marketing and running a marketing company, coaching was something that the privileged few could afford. It was expensive, 5-figure coaching programs, but they foretold of great success you would have in working with someone who could really keep your head in the game and help you be accountable to yourself and others. But now everybody's coached in some way, and coaches and consultants are out there in mind-numbing numbers. It's people have left corporate to become a coach. Again, one of the great changes that the pandemic forced upon us is people left their corporate jobs to become consultants. And whereas consultants are some of the highest paid people in business, there are a lot of starving ones. And it's not that big a difference between people who are really making it as consultants and others who are trying to get something going, trying to scrape up a client. And I'm here to tell you that it's not easy. It's not a yellow brick road. You have to work at it every single day. And people are frustrated. They're scared. And they feel that they don't want to put in the time to build a relationship. That's why they churn out these spammy messages. They hire marketing programs, which, by the way, are very expensive. Some of these robot generated messages that you receive, someone's paying a couple grand a month to churn those things out to thousands of people. And I'm not quite sure what the open rate on them is. I'm not really sure how they convert. It can't be high because everybody I talk to hates it. Nobody would buy a meaningful product or service through a cold, spammy email. Would you?
Yet. It's just
would you? Well, would you?
Good AI coming, so.
Well, AI, you know what? AI is a little different because there's some really good features about the AI world. And I do a LinkedIn audio room dedicated to content production on LinkedIn. With your permission, I'll invite you folks to join it. It's called Content Snobs. And we just happen to be doing our first of many AI conversations coming up on Thursday, August 17th. I know Lori's taping this, so Thursday, August 17th might not mean anything 10 years from now if people are first accessing it. So, but I think what we're seeing at the start of the AI movement here is people are starting to see the difference between machine generated and human generated. And it's becoming pretty obvious to me. It's getting a little bit better, a little bit easier. And I do see the value of AI in a creator economy that's starting to tighten. But at the same time, growth as a professional comes through original expression and not having to cheat and spitting prompts into a machine to get a 3,000 word white paper that you can put out as your own, because it's not your own. It's not your own. And
JD, thank you very much for your answers. And I know that time is running up, and I see that it's Christopher's question already, and I'm feeling like I'm taking all the time. So let's answer Christopher's. Is it beneficial to add a link to a portfolio of work examples on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's great question, Christopher. Not only beneficial, it's recommended at this point, because that is the hallmark of the inbound game. The work that you do, if you're posting content regularly on LinkedIn, but you're not getting the engagement you want, obviously you're going head to head with the algorithm, and perhaps your post is being suppressed, or perhaps you don't have the network size that justifies greater spread across LinkedIn. So the key is you build this portfolio of content and you bring people to it. That's exactly what I do. And I parse these posts in my featured post section out. We put them, I see you asking where to put this. You put this in the featured post section, or if you're hosting them off LinkedIn, you can put it in the, you do get a live link underneath your professional headline in the creator mode. So if you're in the creator mode, that means you're trying to draw attention to yourself as a content producer, content marketer. So you can do that. You're taking people off LinkedIn, which LinkedIn doesn't really like, or certainly the algorithm will disapprove. But at least you have this place where people can go to see your work. But you can already do that in your contact info. So the strategy piece here is work that you're producing strictly for a LinkedIn audience that remains on LinkedIn, that lives on LinkedIn, should be tied to your profile. And that featured post section is the place to do it. And that has become an integral piece of the strategy that I'm now imparting to my clients and students. So Heather, you want to unmute and ask your question live so we can hear your voice?
No problem.
Come on, man.
That's right. Step right up. I was looking at time and was like, maybe I'll just type it. So,
cool.
LinkedIn, obviously, great place to connect with others. It's good for personal development. You can connect with people who you can help and who can help you. And of course, awareness, folks aware of you, so that if roles come up that they know about, they can move you into that. But do you see any opportunity for LinkedIn to help your career growth within the company you're already at?
Immeasurably. And the company may also appreciate that. One thing I've learned from some of the companies that I serve is that they're having a tough time finding internal voices, brand ambassadors who can go out there and talk about the company other than the admin of the LinkedIn company page. The LinkedIn admin, that's what they get paid to do. They get paid to talk good things about the company on LinkedIn. But when they've got people sharing that activity, it makes, again, for greater coverage on LinkedIn. So content marketing and content creation is not relegated to people who are business owners or entrepreneurs or solopreneurs. Anybody within a company can have a voice, and they can assert themselves as authority figures through their own original work, whether it's tied to their industry, whether it's tied to a specific product. And as long as you're not giving trade secrets away, or you're within the parameters of the company's accepted limits for putting out work, it serves you in so many ways. It can be part of your profile, and if you're upwardly mobile, or if you feel you've reached a point in your in your position where you're not challenged like you used to be and you're looking for a better role, putting yourself out there as having expertise and authority in what you do is a huge piece of selling yourself. Great question.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. If anybody has another question, because we're almost at the top of the hour. So does anybody else have another question for JD before we part ways? Okay, well,
I think the silence has really drove home the point that I think the questions are done. I know there's more questions, but I know we're also running out of time. But let me take an opportunity to thank Lori, who's been keeping my head in the game on this for a couple of months. Thank you for providing the opportunity, providing the stage, so to speak. And it's an area that's growing. And for anybody that's watching this after the fact who was not here live, but is accessing the recording too, community building and content marketing are the two big areas of LinkedIn. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. In fact, it's probably going to drive the next generation, because many of the baby boomers who are not so LinkedIn savvy, but are still out there as consultants and advisors, are going to probably migrate away from some of this creator type work. And the generation that spawned social media, the Gen Xers and the millennials, it's natural to them. So you're going to be seeing greater content coming out there, more work, more stuff, more AI, and finding your place in it right now is good work. It's challenging work, and that's the future of all of this. So thank you for the opportunity to chat with your fine folks, Lori. And I'm interested in community builders. I like to watch what they do.
my pleasure. Early on in the chat, you'll see I've posted a link to, we've got JD's LinkedIn profile. We've got his website, which is called Owlish Communications. He's based in Chicago, Illinois. And he also has his own YouTube channel where, for example, you can see a TEDx talk. And I believe that early this summer, I think it was June or May, he gave a keynote. That was pretty darn fascinating too. So please feel free to connect with him. And we will see you guys the next time. And the next time we see each other will be in late August. And we're going to have a chat with Chris Miles, who is a game developer and a professional gaming community manager. Yeah, he's one of our pals. And he's going to talk about how he manages a 1,000 person Discord community for gamers. So thanks all for your time. Really appreciate you coming. Thanks to JD for his wisdom, his guidance, and his sartorial splendor. And reach out to him anytime. And feel free to connect with me too. And anybody else here, because it's a CMX tradition that we are generous with our LinkedIn profiles and connect with each other. So thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day, wonderful evening, and weekend. Take care. Bye.